We got Jeremy Avila coming in.
That would be cool.
I think on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
Tuesday, yep. Jeremy Avila.
Where does the E come from? Because I've heard it many times before from many different people.
It usually comes from being really old.
Is that okay?
It's like the old lady pants. Like you see old ladies like just in those. They all wear the same pants. I can't even describe them, but they're just old lady pants, and they all wear them. I don't even know what they're made out of. They're made of like maybe like I don't know, like a polyester or something.
They
but
just look like really thick, like a parachute.
They're just freaking old lady pants.
It's so funny. Anytime we're in like any kind of store and we make like a wrong turn, we always we tease Jasmine about it. We're like, Jazz, what are those to the left? It's like, not granny panties. Like, we'll walk down like the wrong section of the store, like where there's just like big old lady underwear.
That's great.
She gets so embarrassed, and we just we just keep harping on it.
Isn't that always weird? Like, that's even embarrassing as an adult. Like, especially as a guy. Like, I was like, I'm walking through like the women's section at like Target, and I'm trying to pick out something for Quinn. And next thing you know, like I'm in the panty section.
Yeah, you make a wrong turn,
and I'm like, oh great, like
then you're that guy.
Yeah, everyone thinks I'm a big pervert, and not only am I in the panty section, but it's like the little kids' panty section. Like, all right,
even worse.
This just keeps getting. I was just really going downhill.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I was looking for. Never mind. I need panties. I mean,
I was just looking for pajamas. I promise.
Yeah,
we hear that all the time, buddy. Get out.
It's not for me. It's not for me. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for my daughter. Yeah. Like, well, how old is she? And you're like,
I mean, I can genuinely never find anything in the store, though.
No.
It's impossible.
I don't know if women have it like pre-programmed in their head where shit is, but they are certainly a lot better at it than we are. I think it's very clear. Like, even yesterday, yesterday, we brought home some sushi for Jake. We brought him home a spicy tuna roll. That's his favorite thing. And he's like, oh, I want to throw some soy sauce on it. He's like, do we have one of those little soy? And I don't even know what he's talking about. But Quinn right away, she's like, one of those soy dishes? He goes, yeah, we do. She's like, it's right above the where the cereal bowls are. She's like, it's above that and it's to the right.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you even know? Like, first of all, I've never seen them before.
Right.
I didn't even know we had them. And then she knew exactly where they were.
The exact coordinates of everything. I'm the worst. Stephanie will tell me exactly where something is. I'll be staring at it. Like, it's not here. I don't know where it's at. She's like, look right there. I'm like, it's not. Oh, my bad.
Andy's mom calls it because Andy's mom can't figure out why her kids could never find stuff, but it was mainly her boys. She had 4 kids, and 2 of them were boys. And whenever she asked the boys to get something, they can never find it. And she's like, you must just be staring at the ceiling because it doesn't make any sense. It's like it's right there,
But how bad hopefully I don't get into too much trouble, but how bad are girls trying to give driving directions?
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
It's so, oh man. Sorry, babe, but she'll give directions like, okay, once you pass this tree, you're not gonna want to make that left, but then you're gonna want to make the 2 lefts before that
so
tree.
Confusing.
And then after you go to there, then you're gonna make a right and then another left. But make sure you don't make 2 lefts the first time. Actually, you know what? Let me start over.
April does that too, and
you're gonna want to go straight and ignore everything. When you get to the dead end, make a U-turn and then turn right. It's like, wait, hold on.
You're like, remember that building that's on the right? It's on the right. It's like right off that road. I'm forgetting the name of the road, but it's like Tony Roma's Pizza. Well, anyway, Tony Roma's isn't there anymore. It's now an Applebee's. But I think that might have shut down too. Don't turn there. Go straight. Yeah. And you're like, what? You just threw me off so much with this back history of the 2 places that shut down. I don't know what's happening anymore.
Like I've expended all my energy on trying to remember what store has been shut down there. Now that I totally forgot where I was even going.
Yeah, I don't know I don't even know why I want to go somewhere now. Forget it. Forget it. Game over.
I don't know. So I can't find anything, but she can't give directions. So
you're both lost.
Pretty
lost
much.
In each other's arms and eyes. Aww.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a good time having Dr. William Davis in here.
He was great.
In the house.
Yeah, he was so helpful. Like we spoke I spoke to him for maybe an hour afterwards, but him and
I think we were all killing him.
Yeah.
I probably spoke to him at least because he was getting killed by everybody else. So I kind of just was staying back.
Yeah, your dad and Chris were just not grilling them, but they were just like
Yeah.
100 miles per hour both ways, like for like 3 hours, and then we filmed for the movie.
He's one of those people that like he really has the answers. It's almost like I don't want to compare him to like Steve Jobs necessarily, but if Steve Jobs, say, Steve Jobs passed, obviously, but if you had like Elon Musk, you want to ask him tons of questions because you feel like he's got a lot of the answers.
Right.
Whether he does or he doesn't, I don't know. But like with this guy in particular, with William Davis, it seemed like he just had he has so much experience that how could you deny that you can't really deny that he does have helpful answers, whether it's like the best, the most optimal. It's like, sometimes these things remain to be seen, but he certainly has a great opinion that has helped thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had answers. Like, I'm not saying he had all the answers, but he didn't say like, or he just didn't kind of guide you in like a direction where there's kind of an answer. He was just like, no, like carnivore is great, but if you stay on it long term, it's going to cause this. And like we don't hear that.
Right.
So that was just amazing because he gave you the answer, but then told you what will happen eventually.
Yeah, and also too, he was saying that it could cause that. Like he wasn't saying like,
oh right.
He wasn't saying that he knows necessarily for sure that would happen that way. But in his experience, that's what he's seen, and that's what he knows, and he knows from. I mean, he mentioned all the complications that children have had being on a ketogenic diet for too long. And so that's where he got some of his information. And he wasn't saying that you can't go carbless forever. You basically can go very low carb. But he feels you'll be a lot safer with some of these prebiotic fibers, the green banana, the white potato, and those kinds of things he thought would really be helpful. Interesting thing, a green banana, a banana that's just completely green, has virtually no carbohydrates in it. It's primarily fiber. Let that bitch turn yellow, and now you got 45 grams of not only carbohydrates, but pretty much straight up sugar.
Yeah.
It went from being a fiber to a sugar kind of right before your very eyes.
That's weird.
That's what Quest Nutrition experienced years ago when they first put out the first editions of Quest bars had something called chicory root in it. And chicory root does the same thing. Once it sits in something that's like kind of water based, basically, it'll turn into a carbohydrate. So this fiber that is, remember he said yesterday, you want it to be ingestible, but not necessarily digestible. I think he said something like that, right? He wants it to kind of be able to pass through, or maybe he said it the other way around. No, ingestible. Yeah, you can actually eat it. It's something that you can eat. It's not like you're trying to chew on tree bark. But your body doesn't recognize it as like a sugar or carbohydrate. It's a fiber. And anyway, that's what happened with Quest Nutrition years ago. They would send these bars out, they put them on the market, and they were spiking people's insulin levels, not drastically, because it was still a modest amount of carbohydrates. But they were like, this doesn't make any sense. We tested them here. It's totally fine. And then they had a food chemist, a guy like Joel Green, come in and say, okay, well, here's why. Because that product's been sitting for 40 days, and it only takes 5 days for that to turn into sugar. And you're like, what? It turns into sugar? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy. When he says a white potato, is that just a regular...
He's just talking about a regular white potato, but he wanted it to be raw.
Yeah.
And then his suggestion was that you just, blend it up with something, which I don't know how that works. Your blender probably takes a beating.
Probably.
Trying to blend up a goddamn white potato. But I was thinking about making some shakes that way or something,
Yeah, because he said it was just like 100% fiber that way, which
I think so. I think that's
crazy.
Yeah, I think that's what he was saying. There was that. There's a few other things he mentioned being like being that type of fiber, but I don't know. Interesting conversations with him, and it made everything else make a lot of sense when we started talking to him about lifting and bodybuilding and those kinds of things. I like the fact that he's still stuck to his guns and he's still stuck to what he knows. And he's like, you know what? It could potentially help with muscle mass, but it's still not great for the heart. And then you kind of had the question, which is a great question, which is probably true, but we don't really know. If you're moving around a lot, you're exercising a lot, you got a lot of muscle, are you kind of chewing up those carbohydrates? Is it the great equalizer?
Right.
And I don't think anybody really knows that. I think that we can assume that from how healthy, like Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was consuming 1,000 carbs a day, and Jay Cutler today is very healthy. I don't know what his blood work would have looked like when he was a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But I would imagine it was still probably pretty good. I'm sure that he had his moments where maybe it wasn't great. But anyway, his whole thing was, look, it's still not great for your heart. Like, I don't care I don't care what you're training for. It still might be the best idea for your heart. And so I thought that, in bringing it back to that made a lot of sense, even in talking about something like the vertical diet, where, by the way, people are confused about Stan Efferding's recommendations with the vertical diet. Stan doesn't say that you need to have X amount of carbs, protein, or fat. When you get into his book and when you start to really read into it, and you start to break it down for yourself, yes, he might give you percentages, and he might give you some opinions of what he thinks that you should do. But the vertical diet has there's a lot of different things you can do with the vertical diet. The vertical diet can be a pretty low carb diet, and Stan himself will tell you that he doesn't eat a lot of carbs. Stan, stays lean and stays in good shape. Stan's also, he's over 50 years old, and I don't think he tolerates a ton of carbohydrates all that well. I think he just doesn't like them either because they make him groggy. Now, if we're talking about performance and trying to run this big ass engine and be able to dominate the way Brian Shaw does and the way some of these other guys do, then yeah, you probably do need quick, cheap energy sources. Often, otherwise you might lose some weight. Are you going to really be able to have enough fuel, and you're going to be able to eat enough amount of eating that amount of fat and protein? After a while, it would just start to be kind of gross, and I think it wouldn't feel very good. It might not even digest very well.
Yeah. It really threw me when he was like, well, carbs are just cheap fillers. I was like, oh man, when he said it that way, I was just like, damn, rice is kind of cheap and it does just fill me. But
listen, I mean, this is why I say these things aren't excuse me, these things aren't innocent. They're worse than we think. We think, oh, we're out to eat, and they're putting bread on the table. It's like, it's okay for my kid to have bread. It's like, you don't want to say it's not okay for them to eat bread, because you and your kids and everyone, we should be able to make our own decisions. Like, we live in America. It's a free country. Do whatever the fuck we want.
Right.
And that's kind of the bonus of living here. Kind of the bonus of making money and kicking ass at work is, yeah, you do get to go out and treat yourself. But what is that piece of bread with the butter doing? It's really fucking you over like tenfold if you really think about it, because it's not that the bread is that bad and not that the butter is bad. It's not anything about how bad that is. It's taking up room and real estate from otherwise really great nutrients. And so what happens to your kid a lot of times when you go out to these restaurants? I know, like, I've seen this with my own children. They put bread and butter on the table, and boom, my kids will consume the hell out of it. A lot of times these restaurants take forever to serve you food. My son ate 3 or 4 pieces of bread. My daughter had 2. My daughter is a much healthier eater than my son, but my son, he'll eat his French fries. He took 2 bites of his burger, and that's his meal. It's like you had 3 giant slices of bread with a bunch of butter on it, and you had, a thing of fries, and then you had 2 bites of a burger. Protein content, super, super low. Fat content and carbs, super high. And so that's where people start to get confused, because the person that eats like that person could actually use some egg whites in their diet. Somebody that's not really paying attention to what they're eating, and they're eating these weird things where their fat and their carbohydrates are through the roof.
Yeah.
They need to figure out how to get some protein sources in there. And so leaner protein sources might not be a bad idea for somebody like that. Somebody who maybe wants to eat the French fries, maybe they get a chicken sandwich instead of a regular hamburger, because they want some reduction in overall. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
it's some reduction in overall calories. And so that's where shit gets to be really confusing. And somebody's like, it's the fat. Somebody else is like, no, it's the carbs. Well, it's all these things combined, and it's the fact that we're robbing ourselves of the opportunity to eat the most nutrient dense stuff first, the healthiest things first. And
Mm-hmm.
if we can get those things in, it almost would be better if everything was just in reverse. Like, okay, can we have the bread at the table? We probably can't because someone's going to consume it. But almost, can you ask the guy, hey, can you actually bring that, like, with our meal?
Yeah.
And then they come back and they bring it with the meal. Maybe your kid gets a couple shots, a couple bites, they get into whatever it is they ate, even if they didn't eat something that great, even if it's a chicken parmesan, which is
Mm-hmm.
like fried and breaded and stuff. So what? At least there's protein in there. There's some
Yeah.
value to what they're eating. There's mozzarella cheese on it. They had something.
Mm-hmm.
It's some nutrition. Okay, yeah, now have a piece of bread. Not
Yeah.
a big deal.
When it's just my girl and I, like, I'll have to tell the waiter, waitress, whatever they're like to be called these days. I don't want to offend anybody. Like, hey, can you just not bring the bread though? Because
Right.
if I'm staring at it, I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna pick at it, and then you pick at it, it's like, I'll take another little slice here and there, and then before I know it, the whole football-sized piece of bread is gone, and I haven't even gotten my plate yet.
Well, usually when you go out to eat, usually fairly hungry.
Right.
A lot of times you don't go out to eat, especially like with the family. It's kind of a thing.
It takes a while to actually get there.
Yeah, who knows why? Like, you got to wait for your girlfriend to get home from work, or you got to wait from Jasmine to get home from her friend's house, or like something's going on, right? And then you figure it all out, and then you go on your way. And yeah, like by the time you get there, you're like, man, I just want to. I don't even care what they have at this point. I'm gonna eat everything.
Right. Yeah, they make you wait forever. But I think I don't know. I might do it next time where I'm just like, hey, can you bring the bread after that's actually dessert? Because
Right.
if anybody's still hungry, then you can go ahead and have at it.
Right.
But no, my daughter, she'll kill the butter and slices of bread and all kinds of good stuff. But lately, man, so like today, I packed a bunch of chicken to eat, and I'm craving it right now. Whereas the steak's been rough trying to eat. Go ahead and have a seat, buddy. Good to see you, man. So that's kind of weird, but the steak I'm actually having a hard time still eating. But like I said, I packed chicken today, and I'm pretty excited to get after it after we leave this. I don't know what that's all about.
You're excited about eating chicken.
Yeah, which was not the case like a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's another thing is you got to find something that you can stick with, something you can stick to. But I think again, having William Davis here was great, and I think it just brings up a lot of different scenarios with diet. When you think about the carnivore diet, it's great because I eat meat. I don't have to think about much else.
Yeah.
And you might want to think about, some of the things that Dr. Davis said yesterday about, some of these fibers and how potentially if you do a keto diet for really long periods of time, it can impact the gut flora, which can potentially hurt your heart in the long run, and also could potentially some of these diets that don't have any fibers in them at all and have no carbohydrates in them at all, maybe they could potentially cause colon cancer. I mean, just think like, what if some of the information we have is wrong?
Yeah.
It's almost like some people are like halfway religious because they don't know what happens at the end of their life, right?
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I believe in God because they don't want to take a risk of like, what if he really exists, right?
Yeah. I had a cousin who was like, I believe in all religions, so that way once I pass, someone will accept me.
Yeah. So yeah, someone will take you in, right?
Yeah. What I dug about Dr. William Davis was it almost seemed like he wasn't necessarily against wheat or against grain. He was more upset at what we did to it.
Right.
And then he's like, at one point it was this,
Right.
but after cross-pollinating and doing this and that, it's now something totally different that we can't digest.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, once I understood that, I was like, okay, you're like a sane person. You're not just somebody yelling at people, don't eat wheat,
Right.
to try to sell books or whatever.
Well, and also too, like he also mentions that it, even at the time of when they didn't do as much stuff to it, still wasn't great for us.
Yeah.
But it's like, eat or die, right? So like maybe back then, maybe whoever started eating it first, maybe they just didn't have a lot of options, and maybe the survival of humanity relied on some of that. Nowadays, some people rely on like GMO. They make like rice, and they make different things out of stuff that otherwise wouldn't grow in those areas. Like it doesn't grow without water.
Yeah.
And they make these genetically modified foods that people can eat, and it helps feed people all over the world. what are you going to give? You know, you're going to drop off tons of Doritos and Cheez-Its and shit like that into, a country that's poor and has poor nutrition already. All you're going to do is take them from being very thin and deprived of the nutrients that they need to making them fat and still deprived of the nutrients they need, because you don't get any nutrients that you need from eating shitty food.
Get fat or die trying.
Get fat or die trying. You'll be more fatterist than you were before.
How's the Get Less Fatterist Facebook group going?
It's going good.
Yeah.
People are cranking in there. I'm trying to give out information almost daily. I've been doing pretty good with that. Been pretty consistent with that, giving people information. The diet is still the same. We haven't changed anything quite yet. But next week we're going to roll into doing the vertical diet, and I've been mentioning to people, try to follow along with some of the stuff that Stan's shared here on this podcast. He's talked about the vertical diet many times. If you go on my YouTube channel, Stan and I do a 10-minute walk where he talks about the vertical diet. It's kind of plastered all over the place. You can also just type in on YouTube, Stan Efferding vertical diet, and you'll find the information that you need. Or you can just buy his book. His book's like $100, and I realize not everybody has $100, so I'm trying to give you some free options. And then also Stan will give us the information anyway, and I'll be able just to kind of post that, and everybody will be able to get to kind of see that. But what I gave people in the first place anyway is very similar to the vertical diet. It's just that there's I didn't take into account a lot of the things Stan did with the like low gas foods and different things, because I was just like, you know what, vegetables, just eat them. Fruit, just eat it. I want people just kind of getting used to eating these foods. I want people to get used to shopping. People they don't shop, they don't plan ahead.
Yeah.
They don't meal prep. And there's all things that you need to get used to. If you want to be big and you want to have muscle and you want to be strong, you have to continuously figure out a way to feed those muscles. You have to continuously send the correct signals to your body. If you do cardio 3 times a week and you don't meal prep and you're not sleeping very well, you're going to have a body that shows all that. Your body's going to look like that. Your body's not going to look, you're not going to look like you're sending a signal to your body to be muscular or to have a good body fat percentage. You're going to have a body fat percentage that's probably not great. You're probably going to be kind of skinny fat. So you have to kind of get out in front of it. You got to figure out a way to try to balance. You got a lot of spinning plates when you're doing a diet and when you're doing hard training. There's a lot of things to kind of think about. And I wanted this diet to start out very, very easy, but you guys will see as we move along, and there's been people that are kind of like begging for the diet to get harder. You won't be begging for that when we get down towards the end, because it will get more and more difficult as we move forward.
Damn, son.
Something I want to talk about today, guys, make sure you go back and listen to that podcast with William Davis. It was spectacular. It's one of my favorite ones. And then also don't forget, all of our stuff here at Slingshot is IPF approved, so make sure you check out markbellslingshot.com. And make sure you get yourself some knee sleeves, and make sure you get yourself some wrist wraps, and protect yourself before you wreck yourself. But I wanted to talk about something. So I've been listening to Jordan Peterson a lot, and I'm excited to get him on the podcast. I know that we'll get him on here soon enough. But I was listening to some of the stuff that he's been saying, and I know some people flip out because Jordan Peterson shares some political views. And Jordan Peterson talked a lot about how he feels that responsibility is like the meaning of life. And I think it's a really powerful statement, to kind of say, like, I know what the meaning of life is, right? But if you kind of think about it, the things that you're responsible for, and when you are responsible, and when you do follow through with what it is that you are responsible for, or the things that you're supposed to be doing, it makes you feel really good. So if even just something as simple as you made a goal to deadlift, 300 pounds, right? Goals to deadlift 300 pounds. Well, you deadlifted for today. You trained your back today. You worked really hard, or what it was yesterday or 2 days ago. you did all the things, and you actually ended up picking up 300 pounds for the first time. It's with the trap bar. We elevated the bar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting there. We're working towards it, right?
Yeah.
We're chipping away.
No, but only you would have known to one have used the top handles on the trap bar,
Right.
and then still give me a little like a 1.5 inch boost or 2 inch
Something,
boost.
yeah, right.
Just small enough to just have me successfully deadlift that.
Right.
Because if it was a straight bar from the ground or whatever, and I didn't do it, you've seen my reaction when I miss a lift.
Right.
So
not your reaction. Everybody's like, yeah, everyone's upset. You know,
right.
But that as small as that is on your list of responsibilities, what your responsibility is, your fiance, your responsibility is your daughter, your responsibility is your house. I mean, you got these tremendous responsibilities. As small as the responsible for, I have this goal in the gym. You took care of that responsibility. And it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And not only makes you feel good, it makes you feel great.
Yeah.
For some reason, that side thing, because what's the reward for like taking care of your house? There's not one really, like it's rewarding to go home every day to a home that you love and to have things set up and to have people inside of it that you love. Of course, that's amazing. But like those things are like taken for granted because those are things that have, it takes a long time to figure out who you're going to be with. Like all these things, they take fucking forever to figure out. But it's such a slow progression into all that that you kind of forget about how amazing it truly is. So it's not like you go home every day and you're like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Right.
Stephanie, I'm so glad to see you. And you jump on her, right?
Yeah.
Some days are like that, but for the most part, it doesn't really feel that way. But when you pick up 300 pounds for the first time and you've been working towards it, it does feel that way. You're like, fuck yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a guy who celebrates after, not everyone's that guy who wants to fucking, scream or kiss the plates. I've seen people do stuff like that before. Everybody's different with the reactions. Some people just, kind of walk away from the weights or, I've never really been huge into like, celebrate. I like to get fired up for the lift, and then, usually I kind of go on and do my own thing. But the things that you're responsible for, maybe that really is the meaning of life, and maybe that is something that's really, of tremendous value. And when you can also kind of look at it this way too. Like, I think a lot of people have felt like useless before in their lives or worthless.
Yeah.
Even some of the most savage people you've ever met have felt that way. Like you just feel like a bitch some days. You don't feel like getting off the couch. People talk about like depression and these different things. I think everyone has suffered from some form or some slight degree of depression where you just don't feel great about yourself. These things that we're doing in the gym, you can kind of say, you know what? Maybe I'm not the man that my wife wants me to be, or maybe I'm not the student that my teacher wants me to be, and maybe I'm not the son that my parents want or whatever. But you know what? I went into the gym and I picked the fucking weight up and I picked it up from the ground and I moved it over to here. And I'm worth something. Like, and you proved it to yourself. That kind of stuff is like, it's hard to put a value on that. It's hard for other people to understand it. They don't get it.
Yeah.
Some people don't understand when somebody won't cheat on their diet. Hey, man, you want a piece of cake? It's your birthday. Nope.
Oh, come on. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah, come on. It's not a big deal. But it goes back to the responsibility. Maybe that person in their head, they got this responsibility. They got this goal. They have this thing that they want to meet. And the satisfaction of not eating the cake is way better than the guilt of eating it. The loss of eating it, it's like a loss. It's like you put an L up on the scoreboard. you lost that day. You lost that moment. You didn't win. In order to really truly win at life at every turn, you have to be able to try to pick up these victories as much as you possibly can. And at the end of the day, hopefully, like 80% of your day looks like a win or a victory, or even sometimes it might only be 60%. But it can't look like 30%, and it can't look like 40%. A loss is waking up late. You lost. Like you lost. Not only did you lose, but you lost a chunk of time. So for every day that happens, and by late, I don't mean that you woke up at 10 o'clock. By late, I just simply mean you woke up later than you wanted to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has the discussion or the voice in their head that says, okay, tomorrow morning I'm waking up at this time, and you kind of plan out your day. I've said before on this podcast, I don't think it's a wise idea to start your day until your day is finished. And that means that you plan ahead. You plan your day. Plan your day the day before. Plan your day the week before. Plan your day as far in advance as you can. Have the day somewhat planned so you don't lose for that day. Because if you start to get behind in your day, then you're behind the next day, and you're behind the next day, and behind the next day. If I get out of here too late, it's going to be hard to get my ass in here tomorrow morning for our squat session.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my responsibility, going back to the word responsibility, to make sure that this day is planned out well enough to where I eat at certain times, I lift at certain times, I set myself up the best possible way to lift at a certain time so I can get out of here at a certain time, so I can get back home, be with my family, get my ass in bed, and be ready here at the gym, hopefully by like 5:30 or 5:45 to get a little warm up in
Mm-hmm.
and to have an awesome squat session.
Yeah.
So otherwise you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you can't figure out, you can't make heads or tails of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because not only are you you're behind, but you're trying to catch up. So you're kind of letting other things fall apart too by trying to make up for what you've lost.
It goes back to the piece of bread, doesn't it? Like you ate the piece of bread, but the piece of bread wasn't just a piece of bread. It's the piece of bread in replacement for the steak.
Mm-hmm.
It's that 20-minute conversation that you had with somebody that maybe wasn't as meaningful as you getting through your workout. So, like, as bad as it sucks that you might not have been able to have that conversation with somebody, that conversation can wait for another day, because the most important thing is that you get through this workout. You kick ass in that workout. You get yourself through. You get yourself to eat. You get yourself to bed. You do all the things you need to do, and boom, your next day is lined up the way that it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's not, and a lot of times we're unorganized. A lot of times we're slobs. Everything's just fucking all over the place all the time. And we don't take the time to think about it. We don't take the time to really take care of ourselves. Taking care of yourself and being respectful of yourself and respectful of the things around you is a like lifelong lesson. Like, it's something that can constantly evolve. Like, for me, like, I still have a tendency to like leave my socks all over the place. Like, I don't know. I just like, I get tired of just having my socks on. I'm taking them off. And I take them off and I just leave them wherever they are.
There's so much work to bend down to get them, though.
It's stupid, right? Like, just chuck it away, right? So it's little things like that end up kind of shaping you, and they end up making you. And
Mm-hmm.
like, even here in the office, you walk by something, and somebody went to throw a can out or something, and they missed the garbage. And maybe they didn't recognize they missed the garbage, or maybe they did, whatever. There's something on the ground. You bend down, boom, you pick it up. It's not yours,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of everybody's responsibility to make the place nice. We all work here. Let's keep it. We don't want stuff to be disgusting. We don't want stuff to be all over the place.
Right.
We want the fridge to be like well kept, and otherwise you don't want to put your own food in there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is gross. I'm not putting my food in here.
Yeah, it's like your I guess I'll say your speech about cutting corners.
Right.
It's one of my favorite things that you've ever said. I love that thing. Where if you can you re-say that for me real quick?
I can.
That'd be great. I think people need to hear it. We have some new subscribers.
Mhm.
And it's one of the, like, for me, it's one of the most motivating things that I've heard you say, because it makes the most sense.
Yeah, each and every day we have these corners, and a lot of times in seminars and stuff, I'll do like a demonstration. I'll kind of walk it. I'll walk around in basically a circle, but each and every day we have these corners that we need to get around. And a lot of times people want to try to take the shortcut. So what happens is, you're a smart, rational person. Most of us are rational people. Maybe we're not that smart, but most of us are kind of rational people. So, we don't want to get to work late because we know that'll piss off our boss. So we have every intention of getting to work on time. Something happens in the morning. Let's say let's say for example, actually usually things start to cascade like beforehand, way before that. So maybe you're trying to catch up on the season of Walking Dead, and you watched the show before you went to bed. You went to bed a little bit later than you wanted to, and turns out you don't remember your alarm clock going off in the morning, but it did at some point, and you woke up 20 minutes past when you thought it was going to go off. Well, now you got to rush your kids to school, and they woke up later because you woke up later, and now you have a whole another stress going on. They're trying to eat. You're trying to get them out the door. Maybe because they're later than normal, maybe they can't ride their bike to school. Now you got to drop them off. Well, now here you go. Boom, you're late to work. So there's corner number one that you're cutting, right? You had every intention that day of training, but because you got late to work, now you're working your ass off all day at work. You're trying to kind of make up time. You forgot to bring your food with you that you wanted to bring. So now you go to Chipotle and you have a burrito. Boom. you just cut another corner because you wanted to eat better that day. You wanted to win the day. You wanted to try to make some changes in your diet, and you can't, right? You ate Chipotle. You ate something you didn't want. Now you're feeling guilt from that. Now you're also starting to feel exhausted because you had a bunch of junk that you didn't want to have in the first place. So you're on your way home, and you have every intention of working out, but you're like, you know what? This just doesn't make any sense for me to lift today. I am so damn tired. Shoot, you cut that corner. And you keep cutting corners and cutting corners and cutting corners until finally you are just spiraling. You're just going in a circle. And you are having a lot of movement and a lot of activity without moving forward at all. And you're like, man, I'm really working my ass off. And like, fuck my boss and screw this and screw that. Like, I'm working so hard, and no one even cares. I'm not getting a raise. I'm not getting any recognition. And it's like, yeah, well, you're working hard, but you're not working very efficiently. You're not more productive. You're not more valuable than you were last year or last week. So you're therefore you're not going to get a raise. It doesn't make any sense. That's the only way. To get more money is to be worth more, right? You'll have to figure out a way to become more valuable. And I see people cutting corners, and I'm not just saying people. I would lump myself in there as well. We all cut corners. And when you think about each part of the day actually being really important, everything is significant. Everything has a value to it. And when you start to recognize that, when you start to really recognize this factor, which is the fuck your elbow factor, I made that video a long time ago. That's a video that stuck with a lot of people. It's a video that helped change a lot of people's lives when they heard me say it. And I'll read it right here. And it's basically just, it was in response to somebody kind of making fun of the fact that I lift regardless of how I feel. And I said, you know what, like if your elbow hurts, just say fuck your elbow and get in there and train anyway. It was basically the gist of it. And at that time, I was really frustrated because people kept talking about the central nervous system, and they kept talking about how, they feel fried for their workouts and stuff. And I just thought it was stupid because I'm like, you know what, your central nervous system from lifting should be somewhat fine because you lift every day. You work out every day. Lifting is what you do. So if we all of a sudden just played basketball out of nowhere, or if we all of a sudden out of nowhere did some like Navy SEAL training, well, yeah, of course we would be wrecked. That would kill us. Or if we did a CrossFit workout, that would make sense. Okay, yeah, your nervous system's fried, your muscular system, like all your systems are fried. Everything's shot. That would make sense. But if you powerlift or you bodybuild consistently, you shouldn't need a lot of days off. Obviously, you're going to need some rest here and there, but anyone who's been doing it for a long period of time knows that having a little bit of rest is not going to save your shoulder, your elbow. Taking one training session off is not going to do shit. It just won't. It won't be enough. You'd have to take like months off, and who wants to do that? Because you want to keep training. And so, yeah, I was just really frustrated, and I was just kind of basically saying, like, people are using these excuses. They're using the excuse of the central nervous system to skip out on workouts. And then I made this statement here, which is, we're all head towards pain. We're all gonna die. We'll all be in a lot of pain. It's all coming our way. It's inevitable. It's part of life. But in the meantime, you might as well live your life like a fucking savage and live your life the way that you want to live. And that's a statement that I made, and that's something that I live by. And it goes back to all the stuff that I was saying earlier about the importance of your day to day. If you understand that life is going to be fucking miserable and you're going to deal with a lot of pain and that you're going to fucking die in the end, you're going to do all this shit in your life, and then your payment at the end is that you fucking die. That's what happens. So you're no longer here. And usually for most of us, before we're no longer here, we go through a lot of pain. We end up in a hospital or some shit. And if we're lucky enough, we can just die in our sleep or die at home or die in, I'd rather die in some fucking crazy accident than to die, than to die in some stupid ass hospital, that just seems awful. But with the understanding that suffering is coming our way, maybe it will force you to take your days more seriously, and maybe it would force you to kind of structure your days a little bit more. I'm not saying you got to be like really insanely organized or that you have to change who you are, because I'm not organized myself. I don't write a lot of stuff down. I don't keep track of a lot of things. I try to keep track of them in my head. Maybe I'll write something down on my phone here and there. I do a lot of like voice notes and stuff, but I still stay on top of shit, and I still figure out a way to try to get out in front of things. And when it comes to this philosophy of recognizing that there's just going to be a lot of bullshit in your life, it'll force you to recognize that there's no reason for you to sit around and say that you can't do this, you can't do that. You possess the ability to get better. You possess the ability to almost do anything within reason. Some people say, "Oh, you do anything if you put your mind to it." Well, not really. You can't really do anything if you put your mind to it, because you have you have like a predisposition towards certain things. Like I couldn't be in the NBA. Like it's just not gonna happen. Like not now, right? Like
Right.
How would that? I can't figure out a feasible way that would make any sense to be able to do that. There's going to be certain limitations that you have at certain points. But when it comes to understanding that there are going to be days that are going to be tough. There's going to be things that happen in your life that suck. People are going to die. You're going to get sick. All these things are coming our way at some point. And then it can make you realize, look, you know what? Maybe I should acquire more skill. Maybe I should learn more shit. Most people don't learn anything until something really bad happens. And that's kind of like a fact of life. Like that just happens. You're forced up against a wall and then you learn something. My brother died, and then I created the slingshot. The slingshot invention was already in my head, though. It was already there. But when he passed, it made me recognize, look, yeah, there is a lot of suffering in life. There's a lot of shit that's going to happen in this world that I don't have any control over. And I might as well get off my ass and start moving. I might as well start my life the way that I want my life to be. I might as well just do it right now. It makes no sense to wait around. It makes no sense to... part of the whole way everything took off in the first place was because when my brother passed, I had no control over what happened. I always knew that he was going to die young. I always knew that was going to be the case just because of the way he lived his life. And I said to myself, whenever he does die, I'm going to try to carry on some of the characteristics that he had. That's all you can do when someone dies. When someone dies, it's a way that you can kind of pay back to them, or a way that they can kind of live on through your spirit, or however you want to put it. But when he passed, I was like, you know what? That motherfucker, he didn't take shit from anybody. He never let anybody tell him what he could and couldn't do. Even my own dad, my brother came home from college football, and he came home and he told my dad, he's like, I'm going to quit school and I'm going to become a professional wrestler. And my dad's like, not in my house, you're not. He's like, you need to go do that kind of shit on your own. I don't agree with that. I don't know why my dad said that, but my dad did. I think my dad just wanted him to get a job,
Mm-hmm.
basically. My dad's like, look, you're not going to school anymore. Why don't you get a job?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way my dad was to him. That's the way his dad was to him. And so I think that that's what he thought was the right thing to do. My brother moved out, and 3 weeks later, he was on TV wrestling for WWF. And so, that was a lesson that I learned. And I'm like, you know what? When he passed, I was like, all these people that have already told me that the slingshot thing's not going to work and that it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to listen to that. There's no reason for me to adhere to what they're saying. They don't know me. They don't know, they don't know how hard I'm willing to work to make this thing happen. And at the time, I would just kind of like went to people kind of hoping and praying that they would help me almost, like, oh, here, I got this idea. I don't know what to do with it. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would just kind of turn the idea over to somebody and they'd say, okay, well, we're going to make it and do this. And you get like 50%, but like nothing will ever work out that way. That would never make any sense. And
I'm glad it didn't.
no, I know,
Shit.
I know. I'm glad it didn't either. That would have been horrible, right? But
Yeah. How before you go on, how much of your your life at that point was consumed by trying to get the slingshot off the ground? Meaning because you didn't have like a real job at that time, right? Or,
no.
So it was just lifting, family stuff, and then how much of the rest of the day was slingshot, like pushing, basically.
Yeah, it was a lot. It consumed a lot of me. It was something I thought about constantly, and it was it consumed me. I was really frustrated. I mean, I was really, really pissed about it for a while because I was trying to figure out how to get it made, and then I got it made, and then it wasn't the way that I wanted it to be made. So I had a prototype of exactly what I wanted, and then when I took the prototype to try to get it made, it was a disaster. And I don't know. I just didn't really realize that things. I didn't know how anything worked. So, I was the first order that I did was like $500 worth or something. They kind of sell you on the fact that you need to get a certain amount of them, and I was like, "Fuck, man, I don't have $500." And so I got them made, and they were terrible. They were like, it was almost like an ace bandage material. Like it wasn't much stronger than that, but it still worked. It still did the job in some way, and so it still allowed me to kind of keep going forward. But the other thing was too is they smelled really bad.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, because they were dyed this weird, like they were dyed red, and then it would make your body red too. They'd make your skin all red.
Like Burdick, when he was talking to the whole team without you guys, he said how bad they smelled.
Oh, they reeked.
He said they were awful.
It just smelled so. I can't even describe. What they smelled like, but it just reeked.
Yeah.
And then Andy and I tried to wash them because we're like, oh, maybe we can get the color out of them. So we washed them and we dried them and we did a bunch of shit to them. But then it broke our washer.
Oh no!
It was just like kind of one blunder after another, and I was just like, I didn't have anybody that could help me at the time. Now I have a whole team of people, and I can say, hey, Joey, I need you to reach out to this person and get them for the podcast, and she can contact them, and we could have them here in a month, and so at that time I didn't have anything like that. I didn't know where to go. My wife didn't really know how to help me. I talked to my dad a lot about it and stuff, but he didn't know. He didn't have any idea what I was talking. Like no one knew what I was talking about. Like because it's new, it's different, it's an invention. I created a product that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
So it's like where do you go with it? So yeah, it consumed a lot of my time. Cool. It consumed a lot of my hours. I actually had a whole nother room in my my wife and I lived in Woodland, and when we first moved to Woodland, we lived with my brother-in-law because we couldn't afford to get a house on our own. So my brother-in-law and my wife signed for the house, and my brother-in-law moved out. He lived with us for like a year, and then he got a different job, and he moved out. And when he moved out, that was like my R&D room. That was
wow.
It had knee wraps and wrist wraps and bench shirts and squat suits in there. And I used to go in there all the time and just mess around with these wraps and stretch them. And I mean, I did all kinds of weird stuff. I'd like mummify myself. I'd just take a wrap and I would like rather than like wrapping my knee, I would just like wrap my whole leg just to kind of see what it would
Just see what
do.
happens.
I took wraps and then I would wrap it like in like a almost like a like a underwear type of thing. Like I'd wrap it all like around both legs and then like kind of around my butt and stuff to see if it would like be something for squatting.
You definitely have pictures of this, right?
No, I
Like
don't.
no pants on or anything.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, wrapping it around my neck and whacking off and everything else.
there you go. Now, the reason why I had asked about like how much of your time did it consume or time and energy is because you hear, well, I've heard of people like, oh, I want to be a, I don't know, I'll just say professional wrestler, or I want to be a photographer, whatever it is. They say this and then they go play video games or they just kind of dick around. They don't like spend like nowhere near enough time and energy or focus on their said goal.
Yeah.
So like by you saying like, yeah, it consumed like everything, like, cause I know that's what it did for me with photography. Like every waking hour that I had was free. It was consumed by trying to be a full-time photographer.
It was it was constant. It was day and night. I mean, I remember coming home from the gym and then messing around with the wraps some more. And it wasn't always slingshot driven. It was just like more like just messing around with stuff. And that's why, here at work, I mean, I said it I think last week in during one of our meetings. I said I don't like everyone to just work all the time. And Smokey kind of laughed because I know that we create a lot of work here and there's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things to do, but you need to do other stuff. That's when you get, some people are like, oh man, I think of the best stuff when I'm taking a dump, right? Because now, I mean, you had 5 seconds to yourself, right?
Right.
And now is when you think of something. Or when you go to Bodega Bay and you look out at the ocean, you start thinking of weird stuff. Maybe something hits you from, you think about some thing that you liked when you were 7 years old, some toy that you liked that you got at Christmas or something. You think of something crazy.
Yeah.
Something crazy hits you, but maybe that sparks something, reminds you of something else, and you're like, oh man, like it would be cool if I could capture this in a photo, or it'd be cool. Like it might make me think of a new invention, or who the hell knows what it does, but it does weird shit to you.
Yeah. No, it was funny when we
can't get that from working.
No, and when we got to the beach house, I looked out and I'm like, oh wait, I want to capture this photo right here, like, and I delivered them to everybody on the team for one of the new jackets that we're coming out with pretty soon. But you're right, like I couldn't have thought of that photo unless I was away from work. And I ended up turning it into a little bit of work, but that's just so we can all write off the beach house because we got some photos done there.
Awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of things that hit you out of nowhere, when I was watching A Leap of Faith, there's a scene where you're squatting, and I can see my flashes going off. So like technically my camera was in the movie, but I wasn't. But I had met Chris, and I didn't even know it because it was like the second time I shot for the gym. And so I'm like meeting everybody for the first time or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
And like I didn't even recognize him, and like I was telling him about it yesterday, and he was getting a kick out of it. He's like, "Oh, well," like, and I was like, it hit me all at once, all of a sudden when I seen your movie that I had met you already without even knowing it.
You just saw it the other day?
I saw a couple weeks back, or months back, I should say. But it was funny because I was just telling him yesterday when he was here, but. When you just said when something hits you all of a sudden, that's what I was thinking of, because I'm like, dude, out of nowhere, like it just like the whole like lost memory came back when I seen that scene in the movie.
Yeah, it's weird when that happens.
Yeah, man.
It did consume every day. It took a lot of time, and it took a lot of like, I mean, I remember going to, I used to go to Starbucks every day. I'd go to Starbucks, and then my wife would work out at the gym that was right down the street from there. It wasn't really down the street. It was like next to Starbucks, basically. And she would work out with her friends, and I would sit there and I'd just, I don't know, write stuff down. I'd look at videos on YouTube, and I would just like think. It's now what I kind of just call my personal development time, where I just sit there and work on stuff. I work on trying to make myself more betterist, more smarterist.
I know you said you would get kind of frustrated or pissed off, but in the moment, did you appreciate this, like the journey, the struggle?
No, I was just frustrated.
Yeah. There was times when like I was taking like any photography job and I'm working on shit or going to like kind of like personal development just to watch like YouTube videos where I'm like, I know someday this is gonna pay off. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it was.
Right.
So in that
Yeah.
moment, I was like, this kind of sucks, but at the same time, this is kind of cool because one day I'll look back and be like, damn, I took any amount of money to shoot like a kid's birthday party just so I can keep working.
Right.
So, but that's cool, man.
Yeah, I just kind of kept chasing it. I
Yeah.
just kind of kept chasing it, and like, every day I would just kind of tell myself that I'm gonna figure out a way to do it.
hmm
And I just remember, I was really frustrated, and I actually just told my wife, I was like, I guess I need to stop being frustrated and just understand that, like, you can't help me with it, my dad can't help me with it, my brother can't help me with it. I just need to help myself.
hmm
And kind of when I said that out loud, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's like the right thing to do. That's what I need to do. Because she was like, "How do I help you? You seem so frustrated about it, you know?" And I was like, I'm like, I don't. I just kind of told her, I don't think you can. I think it's just something because it's my idea, it's my creation, and I need to communicate it better with what I'm looking for. And then so it actually, in all reality, none of it took very long. Looking back at it.
hmm
But the entire like process from start to finish probably did take like 4 years because I had the idea for a long time, but
hmm
I sat on it I was told it was a bad idea many times, and so I was like, okay, well maybe it is a bad idea. And then my brother passed, and then it took a little bit while after that that the idea started. I think I've told this story before, but I had a dream, and my brother was in the dream, but like I don't know, it was weird. I woke up and it seemed like he whispered in my ear, and I just heard the word think. I still don't even know. I don't know what happened
hmm
on that day, and I've had other people tell me they've had similar experiences when they've had people die, that they had just these weird like things that they can't explain,
hmm
whether it was you're visited by a fucking ghost or whether it was just a dream or a nightmare or whatever you want to call it. Um, it was like from that moment on that all that kind of got kickstarted. And I woke up with chills. I didn't know what was going on. I was like in a panic. Like my
hmm
heart was racing, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
hmm
I mean, it seemed like he was there, and I know I don't think he was there, but it really did seem like he was there. And I don't know what think meant. I didn't know what it meant. But if you're in my house and you're sitting down watching TV, if you just look to the left, there's a like a plaque there. It just says "think" on it. So if you next time you see that,
Damn,
you'll
I haven't recognized it, or maybe I saw it and didn't even
yeah,
realize.
next time you see it, you'll kind of know what it's there for.
Dang, that's dope.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of these things you're gonna have people that tell you, that you can't do it, and you hear people all the time saying, that you gotta like fight through it and all this stuff. But I mean, you really do, and it has to be something that you have to. It has to be part of your everyday process that you are not allowing what other people say to bother you or to slow you down.
hmm
If you know something's right, I try to tell people, follow that gut feeling, follow your heart, and don't always follow your head. Um, Even with something as simple as what we have coming up in a few days, a sale that we're running, you know, um, Andy's like, I don't know if we can do that sale. And I'm like, well, we can do whatever we want. Of course we can do it. She's like,
hmm
well, I don't know if it work out like logistically. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a good way to think. Like that's people that have, and obviously a sale from Slingshot's not going to change the world,
hmm
but people that have changed the world are people that have weird thoughts. Like Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars.
Right.
Like what? Like how many people have talked about that in the history of the world before?
hmm
Or how many people have? Maybe there's been like 100 people that have talked about it. Maybe there's been scientists that have talked about it over the years.
hmm
But who's set forth any action towards it? He's probably like pretty much the only guy. Maybe him and maybe Jeff Bezos. Like there's anyway, it's a short list,
hmm
right? But these people say stuff that's off the wall, right?
hmm
And then they go out and they figure out a way to do it.
Do you think like heads of other companies who are equally crazy are kind of like silenced by the board or whatever that they work for or that they basically built? Because I mean, there's other big companies, but you don't really hear anybody saying some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think people you have to drown out. I've said this in the seminar that we did the other day. You got to drown out the noise of basically all the kind of haters, all the people that are going to tell you that you can't do it, all the bitchers and whiners,
Mm-hmm.
and all those people, and you have to listen to the sound of your own voice. The sound of your own voice usually leads you. Usually, like the first instinct that you have to do something, usually it's right, and then what do you end up doing later on? You're so mad at yourself. You're like, why did I let that happen? I know better than that. Like you're pissed at yourself. You're like, why did I listen to anybody else? I should have just done that my way.
Yeah.
I knew that would have worked out better. It's like you set yourself up for some reason. You're thinking like something's going to be better if you do it this different way, and like you're always pissed about it.
Yeah. Call them the dream killers, remember? But
Right.
I think it was Tate Fletcher when he was talking about taking acting classes, how he was willing to go as far as like purposely falling to like twist an ankle so he couldn't go up on stage to like do like improv or whatever it was. But he's like, man, I can't believe I'm willing to go through all that just to get out of something that I want to do. Like, to talk himself out of it, and just
That's actually really, it's actually
crazy.
I know it does sound crazy, but it's actually really normal. Like you want to fail to justify the fact that you're not trying.
Right.
You want to like, and I think that's really common. Of like, and Tate Fletcher is like he's an older guy, but like, it's a really common trait of like an immature soul, of someone that's a little bit like immature, or they're immature or new to like what they're doing, and it's scary. Acting or that kind of stuff is like,
That's scary.
I used to I didn't feel the same way. It wasn't as powerful, but I used to feel that way about wrestling sometimes. A lot of times when we would do like our promos and stuff, and they would say, they'd be like, they'd point to like Cena or something. They say, you got 3 minutes and you're going to wrestle Smelly and get up there and talk. And then he'd go up and talk and he would do really well. And then maybe the guy after him would do really well and the guy after him. And I'd start thinking, oh shit. Like, like I wish I was like first or second, or like I halfway wanted to be first, but then I'm like, being first kind of sucks. Like whatever position you're in is not good enough. Right. Cause you're just thinking, and then you're thinking, oh, if I'm last, it's really going to suck. But it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you go. You're still going to suck probably either way.
I always felt going second was best. Because you let the first guy, whether he does good or not, you can at least see like the tone and how it's accepted. Like if he's way off and people laugh at him, you can be like, okay, I can't do what that guy did.
Yeah, at least he kind of broke the ice a little bit. Right?
Yeah. Because if you wait too long, then you let the anxiety build up, you get nervous, and then you end up pooping your pants.
I used to feel that way sometimes about like even football practice. I mean, I remember like in my entire football career, I played football from the time I was probably like 10 until I was probably like 20. So a decade, and I never missed one practice ever for any reason. I went to practice sick. I went to practice hurt. I went to practice. Just a lot of other people do it too, but. My point is like, I always wanted to like, I like halfway through, I was always like, man, I can't believe we're doing this again today, or this is going to suck when we do these running drills, or this is going to suck when we go and do this. And I was always like, man, I just want to like have an ankle injury, like
to sideline you.
Yeah, so I don't need to do these sprints, or like I'd rather even just fake something. But I never did. I just always it was always in my head, because like you'd see other people do it. So and so's knee is bothered. Like you always have the guy on the team, like something's bothering him every time, and you're like, well, fuck. And you're like, I just want to be like that guy for a minute. I want to just not do all these exercises right now.
Yeah, I played baseball and like soccer and basketball and whatever. I never played football, but it was always awesome when like if it was an outdoor sport, when it got rained out. Like, there's no practice today. Like, fuck yeah. Because I didn't want to go today. I mean, it was every day, but when something got canceled, it was like, oh, this is awesome. And that led to, being an adult when like plans fall through and nobody can come over or whatever. And like, okay, cool. I'll get to be home alone again. I don't know why that is.
Just want to sit home and play video games.
Super Mario Brothers 3 with my fiance.
Some of my point of all this with the, fuck your elbow speech and some of the other stuff I shared today is I think, we should all be desperate to learn. And whenever you have the time, you ever have the opportunity to learn something that could advance your life, then you should really just try to grab a hold of it and fucking run for the hills. Because there's a lot of great people to learn from. There's a lot of great information out there. There's a lot of great things that we can acquire. And just the simple act of learning can help change your life. And I never understood any of those lessons when I was in school. Maybe I would have liked learning better if I understood some of that, but I didn't know anything. I didn't really understand any of that. And the things that you learn in school, a lot of things, obviously weren't of interest to me. But you almost need some desperation to learn. And in my opinion, a great way to have the desperation is to know that pain and suffering is coming our way. So you might as well learn and grow and do stuff now. Do the things that you want to do now. Stop talking about having a better body and start working on it. Stop talking about being stronger and start working on it. Stop talking about this class or this seminar or this thing that you want to go do, and just you want to come to Super Training Gym, fucking come to Super Training Gym. And I say the same thing all the time. I want to make sure people understand I'm guilty of all these things too. That's how I'm able to speak upon them. And I used to be worse, but I continue to get better. If I had to give myself a grade, I would say 10 years ago, I was like a 4, and now I'm maybe like a 6. And I'm hoping that someday in my life I get to be like an 8. I'll never be perfect, but hopefully at some point, I'm trying to get better at kind of everything as best as I possibly can. But, a really good way to kind of see where you are is to kind of look around and not really see what other people are doing, but it's important to observe what other people are doing, but don't let that put you in the wrong spot, because that's not your place. Your place is not to compare yourself to others. The most important person to compare yourself to is yourself. So like my dad the other day, he was talking about how he lost, I think 25 or 30 pounds. And he's like, I've lost some weight, but there's these other guys that lost, people go on the keto diet and they lose 50 pounds or whatever. I'm like, Dad, people that lose 50 pounds are normally 300 pounds. I'm like, you're not a big guy. He started out weighing like 230. Now he weighs like 198. I'm like, you're not a big guy. And he's a numbers guy too.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, that makes sense.
I'm like, you dumbass. I'm like, you realize you lost 15% of your body weight, and that if you lose like 10 or 12 more pounds, that'll be 20% of your body weight. That's fucking crazy. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount. 20% of your body weight is huge. And most people, a lot of their markers for health improve. Even people that are really heavy, a lot of their markers for health improve with the first 10% of body weight that they lose.
Right.
So if you're 300 pounds and you were able to lose 30 pounds, which unfortunately some people may not even notice on somebody that big.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to chop people down here, but that's kind of the truth. You go from 300 to 270, some people might notice, some people may not, but your markers for health will improve a lot. That's what makes this game so hard, though, and that's what makes training so hard, is like these things do take time. And I told my dad, I'm like, well, what do you want to weigh? And he's like, I'd love to weigh 185. I'm like, you're so
right
close.
Around the corner.
He's like, yeah, it's the other day I was thinking about giving it all up. I'm like, for what?
Oh, no.
It doesn't make any sense. He goes, no. He's like, I'm not going to give up. But he's like, I was just like, why am I even bothering? He's like, he goes, I don't know. I'm not gaining any more muscle. And I said, first of all, you're 70. So gaining muscle is going to be hard. Not that it can't happen, but it's going to be tough. And I said, building muscle is very specific. You and I have been working on specific muscle groups to try to bring up, but like, how specific has it been, and how hard have we been working?
Hard.
We've been working hard.
Yeah.
We've been like really, really getting after it. And I can say that, during that contest prep that I did, I think my arms got better. Your arms certainly have gotten a lot better. And I noticed actually in both of us, our backs are getting bigger. I've never really had like a lot of, especially strong benchers, have these fucking really wide, thick backs. And I was just looking the other day, I'm checking myself out in the mirror and I'm like, oh shit, like the back's coming in. I've always had, big traps and some things like that. Like, so some people listening are like, Jesus Christ, like Mark's pretty jacked. What's he bitching about? It's just in comparison to like, probably people that I shouldn't be comparing myself to. But, when you look at your physique, it's pretty easy to point out where you think you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying you want your stomach to be better, right? Like,
Yeah.
You look at these different areas. I want my dick to be bigger. You look at these
What?
different. Wait, what? How could it get any larger than it is?
Hey, you were naked in Malibu in the same room as me.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Multiple times.
I was. That was weird.
That was all right.
It was for a shoot that we were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you needed any help. I mean, I was not staring.
It was
directly
warm that day. It was warm and wet that day.
It was.
Yeah.
You could smell the ocean in the background,
mm-hmm.
or was it the foreground?
Yeah, I just said earlier. A guy was making fun of Jessica. I was walking by her office. She was chomping down on a burrito, and it's great because we've fat shamed Jessica to the point where she's gotten fit and gotten in good shape,
mm-hmm.
and now we're fit shaming her.
Yeah.
We're like, what are you doing being so skinny?
Mm-hmm.
You have a powerlifting meet coming up. I'm like, you got to fatten up. And Marcus is like, what's going on over there? He's like, because Marcus is her coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, she needs to fatten up. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to tell her. She needs to fatten. She's eating this burrito as I'm walking by her office. And she has a mouthful of the burrito. And she's like, Marcus made me eat it or whatever. And I'm just looking at her. And I'm like, I don't know. I said something about her. I said something because her nickname is the fertile female, which I think she might have gave herself, but I don't remember how it happened. But
I think it might have just been a YouTube comment.
There you go.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it was a YouTube comment, and then she put it like as her like phone thing. So like if I go to like airdrop something to her, it pops up fertile female. And and then her headphones were synced to my phone too. And so Andy's looking at my phone one day on the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Who's the fertile female?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "That's Jessica."
I don't know how that got there.
Yeah.
I promise.
She's like, "What?" And I was like, it's a long story. But anyway, I was messing with Jessica, and I said, there's a lot of fertile female fans or something. She goes, the fertile female smell is in the air. And I was like, oh,
no.
I was like, that's disgusting. What do you do? I was like, what do you mean the smell is in the air? Like, you can't say that.
It's so funny. She'll say stuff and then be like, nope, I'm about to get roasted for that one. Like, she'll catch herself sometimes.
She says some really, really funny stuff. It's funny, too, because she's definitely not like ditzy. It's not like a ditzy comment. It's not like she says the wrong thing.
Uh-huh.
She just sometimes says something, and it just, we're all a bunch of perverts in here and stuff, too, so that doesn't help.
It happens.
It does. It happens.
We were talking about your back.
Building up those lats. I was just saying how specific it is to, and my dad, talking about how, he's comparing himself to other people, and I'm kind of trying to get him to hone in and compare himself to the most important person, which is himself. And the only other time he's been under like, I think when he got married to my mother, I think he weighed like 210. So that was a long ass time ago. He now weighs 198 pounds. And then the next thing that he says, he's like, I feel better now at 70 than I did when I was 30. And I'm like, well, what are you complaining about? I'm like, that's a huge statement, because that's a lifetime ago and then some.
Yeah.
That's 40 years ago. I mean, that's crazy. Like I'm in my 40s, so it's like that's a me ago, right? Like I was probably around when he was or being born ish or somewhere around there when he was 30, and he's saying he feels better now than he did then.
Damn. Mainly
just from like 3 months of diet and exercise. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy to me how quickly.
You think he like downplays it to just try to, I don't know what would be the word here, but to try not to make it a big deal, so that way he doesn't like, I don't know, feel too vulnerable if somebody else were to be like, oh, that's not that much.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of like worried about what people are gonna say, even though they're not saying it, type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't have a good idea on like how competitive my dad is in like that sense. I don't know. Like, but he obviously he must be aware of it. Otherwise, yeah. I know people say that stuff all the time. I don't know
Mhm.
why.
I did it yesterday, or was it yesterday when I posted my 300-pound deadlift?
Hmm,
But I was like, I know it's off of a trap bar and I know it's off of blocks, but it still felt incredible. But like looking back
right.
at it, I don't really have to like admit that. I don't know. I guess I was
Yeah.
just worried about people saying
Right.
like, oh well, next time try a straight bar off the ground.
Right. Right.
Like, hey, leave me alone, imaginary person.
Yeah. It's just like yeah. It just feels great to pick up those big weights, and you just want to like kind of leave it at that. But it's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to leave it at that because you are kind of concerned about um, what people are going to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think if you want to try to find, to kind of wrap all this up, you want to try to find, unless there's some questions over there, but you want to try to find some meaning in what you're doing. What's the meaning of it? What, like, why, why are you doing what you're doing? And, those people that can figure out, why they're doing something. Not, it doesn't even have to be that specific on why they're doing, but if you can figure out why you're doing something, a lot of times you can go at it a lot harder. Maybe you don't know why you're doing something because you haven't learned it yet, and maybe going back to the whole learning thing, maybe you have to ask somebody. Maybe you have to ask around and try to figure out how can I. Like Marcus does a lot of the programming for the people in here, and so maybe you would have to say, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm not really sure why am I doing bent over rows, and
Mm-hmm.
and why are they? I got a question. Why are they placed after deadlifts?"
Hmm.
Well, then you could say, well, having a big back and a strong grip and a strong upper back and mid back is going to help you deadlift more. Well, now you just acquired more knowledge that you can apply to something else, and you can take that knowledge and maybe it will help. Maybe it will help your deadlift. Maybe it will help turn things around for you. So things don't always have to be so complicated. And another quote I heard the other day, which I think is outstanding. This goes about, you hear people saying this all the time: find your why, find your why, find your why, or find what your passion is. What are you passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
You hear all these people kind of saying these things, but it's the person that has a why that can bear anything when it comes to how are they going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So um, if you have a strong enough reason why you want to do something, like and I know this is maybe too stereotypical, but you have somebody that wants, you got a football player. You have like someone like Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk played for the St. Louis Rams for a long time and is a Hall of Fame running back, one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest multi-purpose receiving backs and running backs in the history of
Mm-hmm.
football. His why was, I want to get the fuck out of the ghetto. I want to get away from all this bullshit
Mm-hmm.
that I'm surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that by playing football like a son of a bitch and getting a scholarship to San Diego State University and then getting drafted in the first round and kicking the crap out of people day in and day out and making millions of dollars.
He
And then
fulked people up.
he falked people up.
Yeah, he was a part of the greatest show on turf.
They were unbelievable.
They were dope.
But there's so many examples of that where people are they're hungry. They have
Mm-hmm.
this kind of this burning desire, and you don't have to come from you don't have to have a tragic story to have a strong reason why you want to do something.
Mm-hmm. Aubrey Marcus calls it smiling through the suck.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember exactly what he was doing, but he hated his job. But he had the idea to like eventually create on it. I don't think the idea was quite on it at that point yet. But he was like, I was willing to work a shitty job just so that way I can have enough money to start my own company at the end of it all. He's like, so I had to smile through the suck. He's like, I didn't love my job, but I loved the fact that it was going to eventually turn into my own thing. So he had enough passion and enough why to work like in a bad situation
Right.
just to get through to to the other side. And I thought that was pretty dope, smiling through the suck.
I mean, you have to always understand that the things that are bad that happen, there's so much good that can come from them later on. The job that you had before this job,
Mm-hmm.
it made you hungry to no longer work there anymore.
Yep.
That's a positive thing.
And my girlfriend, well, fiance, still working there makes me hungrier to do better here. Even still, it still pushes me because I look at the shit that she has to deal with right now,
Right.
and I'm just like, fuck, like it's so dumb. It drives me nuts.
But everything, it depends on your vantage point, but everything is a positive in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always lead to better things. It'll always lead to bigger things.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, there's certain things in life, like when somebody dies, it's hard to try to figure out the silver lining in that. But like, when my brother passed, like it helped me a lot. Obviously, like it sucks to not have him here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, there's a positive and negative to most things. But the important thing is to try to squeeze out what's the positive, like what's the benefit of this. And I think it's a huge mistake for me or for anybody else to really try to compare yourself too much to other people. You want to compare yourself to yourself. Where were you yesterday? Where were you 6 months ago? Where were you? What did things look like for you then?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing better now, then you should fucking celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to celebrate it like an asshole and do things that throw you off of the momentum that you have towards the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying you should be really happy.
Right.
There's nothing, you should be really proud. People don't take the time to be proud of themselves. I've mentioned this a million times on this podcast, and people aren't nice enough to each other. Somebody tells you something, hey man, how's it going? And somebody says, you know what? Actually, it's going really good. I went into work the other day and I got a huge bonus because I did this thing for them, and they fucking gave me $5,000. Like, somebody can't just say, "Holy shit, what? No way, that's awesome." What does somebody do instead? They're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you know what? Actually, same thing happened to me, but they let me go to their beach house, and my boss, then he gave me $8,000, and then it's like, Jesus Christ, can you goddamn give somebody a pat on the back?
One up.
Yeah, you got
one up guy.
Yeah, you got to one up them, or they're not even listening to you, and they're just going through their phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, all right, well, I guess you don't really care how I'm doing. You're just maybe just saying it.
I almost get nervous, not nervous, but like I almost kind of don't like talking to people about what my job is really, because one, they don't get it right off the bat, but when I tell them like how like excited I am every single day, or like I did go to the beach house, it's like it's almost like I'm not trying to brag, obviously, but you did ask how's things going, so this is how they're going.
I know. I mean, for me at this point, I can't really say anything to anybody.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I cannot. I can't, like, I bought a new truck. Like, I don't mention it to any, I don't really say a whole lot about it because it just, I don't know. It's just, who can I celebrate it with? I can celebrate it with a couple of you guys in here that are close to me, but other than that, other people are you fucking asshole.
Yeah, I don't know. I was pretty stoked when we got a couch. I couldn't wait to tell people.
Yeah.
Because like we lived in the house for I don't know how many months now, and it was just living room was completely empty, and we got a couch. I was like, dude, we're so stoked we got a couch. But you're right. Yeah, if you're like, yeah, we got a new house. What's up?
Yeah. It was kind of, it was just when we got the new house, when we got the beach house, it was like there was a lot of things that have been like that have happened where it's like, I don't want to really say that, all this different stuff. And I learned that quickly, early on in this business, like maybe like in the first 2 years that we were doing this, we got to year number 2 where we started doubling what we're doing in year number 1, and I was like, okay, I can't. I would like tell my brother, and I would tell like some of my close friends, and I was like, that's not going over so well. I need to stop doing that.
Wow.
I mean, I'm just excited,
right?
And if either one of them would hear, they're like, you could tell me anything, but kind of can't.
Yeah,
doesn't really work well.
Yeah, and as far as like questions in the chat room, like, dude, the people that follow us, like, they'll just like answer questions amongst themselves.
That's great.
And they did a great job today, so I got nothing as far as over here. But and then Facebook, kind of the same deal. Well, actually, Mama Bell asked.
Oh, hi, Mama Bell.
Yeah, she had asked if somebody's not on Facebook if they can join Operation Fattest. I just said I think she can still link people to the Facebook page or follow here. That's about it.
That's a good question. We should probably hit people up with an email blast on it if we haven't done that quite yet.
Yeah. But other than that, man, that's all I got.
All right. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Time to go train some bench press. Some pecs. 2 hours?